Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has issued a decree for a record number of citizens to be conscripted into military service. This is the highest conscription in 9 years. According to the document, 135,000 people aged 18 to 30 are planned to be sent to the army during October. Moreover, the Duma previously decided that conscription in Russia will now take place year-round instead of twice a year. At the same time, Putin signed a law to withdraw from the European Convention for the Prevention of Torture. Russia has effectively legalized torture in prisons and detention centers. And here's the cherry on top. In addition to raising taxes for Russians, Putin decided to increase the prices of alcohol and cigarettes to fill the military budget at the expense of Russian alcoholics. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Please like the video and write a detailed comment under this video. This really helps a lot in promoting these episodes on YouTube. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News, using the link in this video's description. There we publish breaking news as it comes in, so go ahead and subscribe. So, Vladimir Putin has signed a decree on the autumn conscription of citizens for military service. According to the document, from October 1 to December 31, 135,000 people aged 18 to 30 are planned to be sent to the army. Last spring, let me remind you, 160,000 recruits were planned to be sent for compulsory service in Russia. This is the highest number in the last 14 years. The current autumn draft will be the largest in recent years. From 2016, when it was planned to send 152,000 Russians to serve in the autumn, to 2022, when 120,000 were sent, the official draft figures supposedly decreased because there were many contract soldiers, then partial mobilization, and so on. In the autumn campaign of 2023, the Kremlin announced the draft of 130,000 soldiers into the army, and last year 133,000. If you look at the whole year, the numbers are still increasing. Overall, in 2025, 295,000 people will be drafted. This is the highest number in 9 years. Well, you know, it already sounds funny when last week the Russian authorities once again swore with tears, just made a solemn vow not to send conscripts to the war against Ukraine. There have already been hundreds or thousands of cases of Russian conscripts sent specifically to fight in Ukraine. Starting next year, Russia will have year-round compulsory military conscription. The State Duma approved the draft law in the first reading. The amendments propose that the conscription period will be extended from January 1 to December 31 instead of twice a year in the fall and spring. The document also introduces a new obligation for conscripts. If a citizen has lost the right to deferment or has not received a summons before the start of the conscription period, he must report to the military enlistment office within 2 weeks from the beginning of this period to verify his information. If he doesn't do this, it's prison. In simple terms, if you didn't get a summons, go yourself. Go to the military enlistment office yourself. No one is going to bother sending you a summons. You'll come on your own. And as for prisons, Putin signed a law denouncing the European Convention for the Prevention of Torture. With the new denunciation law signed, Russia is no longer required to let international inspectors into detention and pretrial centers. The European Convention for the Prevention of Torture and Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment required Russia not only to formally prohibit torture, but also to prevent it. For this purpose, an independent committee had the right to inspect Russian prisons, pre-trial detention centers, penal colonies, and psychiatric institutions, recording violations and demanding their elimination. Now Russia has simply closed its prisons from the eyes of the civilized world. No one will monitor anything now. Whether torture occurs in Russian prisons or not, no one cares. Well, let me quote what human rights activists have to say about this. This step will finalize the dismantling of European human rights oversight in Russia, deprive citizens in penal colonies and detention centers of their last international protection, and worsen the country's human rights situation. Well, basically, I think that's what Russians were fighting for when they started this inhumane war against Ukraine. Or did you think it wouldn't come back to haunt you? Well, you have no rights at all. Not at all, they're just spitting in your face. Putin says, listen, there's a convention on preventing torture. What's that for? Let's reject this document. We don't need it. What do you mean, no torture? There should be. And Russians just stay silent, saying, well, maybe that's the right thing to do. Finally, amid ongoing challenges funding the military budget since January, the Russian government will sharply raise not only taxes but also excise duties on alcohol and tobacco. This follows from the draft amendments to the tax code of the Russian Federation. In particular, excise duties on alcohol will increase by almost 11.5%. This is about the cheapest alcohol consumed by unkempt Russians. Excise taxes will rise further for other types of alcoholic drinks. The excise tax for regular wine will increase by 31% and for sparkling wine by 20%. And of course, excise taxes on beer, cider, mead and so on will also increase. In short, it will now be more expensive for perpetually drunk Russians to cure a hangover, because Putin needs money for the war. Economists notice something interesting here. Excise taxes on alcohol and tobacco have been indexed significantly higher than the official inflation rate, which, according to the plan, is supposed to be 6.8% by the end of the year. A 4% inflation rate is planned for next year. Although in reality, inflation has already reached 10%. That's why economists say that excise taxes can actually be used to assess the state of inflation for the next year. At least 11.5%. In addition, the sharp increase in excise taxes is related to the significant budget deficit of the Russian Federation. Next year, according to the Kremlin's estimates, it will amount to almost 4 trillion rubles. The Kremlin just wants to cover it up with alcohol and cigarettes. A budget gap of 215 billion rubles over the next 2 years. And the rest of the gap will be patched by raising taxes. As those wild Russians say, we've never lived richly, so there's no point in starting now. I'll put an ellipsis here. This episode turned out a bit ironic. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Bye everyone.